Awesome. Welcome to Iteration Office Hours. And Amanda, thanks for adding a question to the agenda.
Sure. So Sid, I know we have a maybe renewed focus on usability first when releasing features. The reason why I say renewed is because it kind of seems similar to what you posted in the blog post that I linked with your thoughts about not reducing quality. But I'm having a hard time reconciling usability first direction because it seems at odds with like doing the smallest, most boring thing. And honestly, and I've mentored people in an internship, and I just love the video that I linked in the first example where you and Leaf were talking about. I think it was like a button where you can create a new issue, and you really challenged something that I would have assumed to be boring to be even more boring by just doing like a copy and paste or something like that. And so I always use that example in my head, like, can I go any smaller? And now I wonder, if I go smaller, is it no longer a high quality or usability first? So can you help give your thought process and advice for product managers when we're trying to reconcile these two directions?
Yeah. Thanks so much. It's a great question and really relevant to the current time. And up front, I'm going to say something, but it's going to sound good, but it might not always be true. So I'd love like examples like, well, Sid, that's nice that you said that, but how does it work in this case? It might be that we find stuff that isn't true. We do iteration means reducing the scope so you can ship something faster. And that is very much compatible with usability. When we reduce the scope of something, it doesn't mean our definition of done goes out the window. It doesn't mean you ship something without documenting. It doesn't mean you ship something where you didn't have green tests. It doesn't mean you ship something that hurts the scalability of GitLab.com. It also means you don't ship something that hurts the usability. Like, it has to be easy to use for the user. And so that's not something you can compromise on. And if I think about like a big usability improvement we're working on now, I'm thinking about the main menu, what used to be called the menu. To make it more usable, we actually removed a bunch of features from that. So I don't think that it's like features and usability are, well, maybe they are at odds, as in we removed features, but that didn't take like extra code or something. It was a change that was hard to research, but not extra code, not extra time spent. So yes, just like you have to write tests, you'll have to make sure something is usable. And I hope that I think that our UX team helps us by exploring designs that are like, hey, this is a future state of something, and that we can work towards that in iterations where we don't have to implement the complete design in order to ship something of value to the user or customer.
Can I give you an example of something that I've done that I would wonder, okay, when we created billable members in fulfillment, this is basically a spot in the app where you can click to see all of the users that are considered billable for your namespace. And when we rolled it out, it never existed. When we rolled it out, we first created a page, and the only thing on the page was a text list. It didn't have any column to it, didn't have pagination, it didn't have any filters, right? Our next step was to make it a table, like a nice looking version of text. Then we added pagination, then we added the filter controls and so forth. And honestly, I went back to that video that I cited to see, okay, how can I channel my inner Sid? Would rolling out this page of just information that you can't do anything with, would that be considered usability first, since you can't really do anything? In my mind, it gives information, so it's better than not.
Yeah, I think this is a really good example where I struggle, and I'm not sure Christy's in the call, but I struggle. This might be something where that was possible before and not possible anymore. Like having, I think, lack of pagination. Okay, that makes sense. No filters. That makes sense. I think I see those. Well, pagination makes sense in the sense that you can't hurt the scalability, so you have to limit it to the first 100 members. But having it as a text list instead of a table that complies with our pajamas framework, that's where I struggle, because I do think like pajamas is now part of our definition of done. So I think that's a bridge too far for me.
And that makes sense to me. If we have like a minimum standard, we must meet that minimum standard. And that,
We're
in that
using
case,
that
was
framework to lay out
Yeah.
our stuff.
this was a couple of years ago, for what it's worth.
Yeah, but I think it's an excellent example. Pagination is really tough. Like if you show the first 100, then you have to say that like somewhere. If you don't, if there are more, or and then I would be, as a customer, I would say, look, this is ridiculous. I can't even see the next 200. So I think too there that I struggle with that. Now, I used to be a developer. I think using the pajamas for the layout and adding the pagination is much easier than setting up a filtering system. So I think our lucky thing is the thing that takes the most programming is the thing that we can cut out of scope. But maybe someone has a more painful experience example where that's not the case.
I have something of a follow-up question to that. As we've gotten larger and, we have more customers, we're a bigger business, we're more visible, have you heard customers change their expectations in any specific ways about what constitutes minimum? Like those sort of like really small changes that look kind of rough, might not have pagination, aren't in the design framework. As a smaller company, I think that's something that customers could kind of expect when we're, scrappy, moving quickly. But, as we shift to, we put reliability in front of velocity at one point, like that was a big shift. Is there, as we grow, have you had customers sort of change their expectations in any really notable ways about like, no, we can't just do that little anymore. There's a higher bar we have to clear in, I don't know if it's just, aesthetic things like that about design frameworks or functionality, and whatever you've heard would be, if there are any specific ways, that'd be cool to hear about.
Thanks for that. I think that's an excellent question. I'm not sure I'm correctly channeling Christy, but I would say that using our framework is more than just aesthetics. It also makes it more usable.
Yes.
But I hear what you're saying, and I agree with the point. I think you're right. Expectations have gone up, and in two ways. First of all, customers know we're a bigger company. Three ways. Customers know we're a bigger company, so they have higher expectations. Second of all, customers are paying us more per user, like average revenue per user is something that has gone up over time. And third of all, we got a ton more customers. So like whatever complaint there is, there's many more. If a certain percentage has an expectation, that is now a higher count of people. And I think the way to solve it is not to say, okay, we can only ship things that are polished and perfect. I think the way to solve it is to be much clearer in what state something is in. I was in a call earlier today, and basically we were talking past each other because the people in the call were talking about general availability, and I was talking about an alpha version of it. And luckily we solved it in the call, but we have to be more explicit about like what state is it in. And I think in the past, sometimes we had a feature, it was kind of alpha, beta. and we put it in the release post as like, yay, everyone, it's shipped, it's done. Rejoice for this new feature. And then people tried it and we're like, well, that's not really great. So I think that the solve is communication. People understand that we can, well, then I think customers love our speed of innovation and they want to preserve that. And they're okay with using something that isn't fully baked yet. We have to be really clear about what state is it. If you're going to feed someone cookie dough instead of a cookie, like tell them it's cookie dough. And some people love the taste of cookie dough, but it's not nice to like buy a cookie, expect a cookie, take it home, and then it's cookie dough in there.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thanks.